All right, you sick fucks, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into a pool of ice-cold cases, the kind that make your balls shrivel. We're talking Cold Case, the show that resurrected dusty old murders and blasted them with a killer soundtrack. We've got a mountain of articles, reviews, and even some behind-the-scenes shit to sift through, so buckle up, Buttercup, because we're going to figure out what made this show tick, why it glued viewers to their screens for 7 goddamn seasons, and if it actually made any difference in the real world. And to guide us through this twisted labyrinth of unsolved crimes, we've got a real expert in the house.
You could say I've spent an unhealthy amount of time pondering why people do fucked up shit.
Let's cut the crap and get right to it. Cold Case ran for 7 seasons, which is like a fucking eternity in TV land. But what the hell was so captivating about it? Was it just the thrill of the mystery, or is there something more?
It's that primal fascination with unsolved mysteries, but with a twist. Each episode was like a time machine, transporting us back to a different era, complete with all its social baggage and historical quirks. It wasn't just about catching the bad guy, it was about understanding the context of the crime, the world they lived in.
So it's like a history lesson marinated in murder and mayhem.
Precisely. They didn't shy away from the heavy shit either. Racism, homophobia, police brutality. They tackled it all, seeing these issues play out through the lens of a cold case, years after the dust settled, made them hit harder, give them a raw human face.
People can't talk about the music. One episode, you'd be drowning in Johnny Cash. The next, you'd be headbanging to Nirvana. What the fuck was up with that?
The music wasn't just background noise. It was practically a character itself. It set the mood, amplified the emotions, and transported you straight back to the time of the crime. It's like they weaponized nostalgia and sorrow with every fucking song.
Damn, that's actually pretty clever. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Were the cases themselves any good? Was there enough suspense to keep people from changing the channel?
For the most part, yeah. The cases were well crafted, full of twists and turns to keep you guessing. The writers knew how to sprinkle clues and red herrings like a goddamn confetti cannon. And the double casting, showing the characters aging over time, added a layer of realism that most shows wouldn't dare to attempt. It wasn't just about the puzzle. It was about how the past haunted the present.
All right, here's the million-dollar question. Did Cold Case inspire any real-life copycats? Did it light a fire under any lazy cops' asses and make them revisit their cold cases?
It's hard to say for sure, but the show definitely brought cold cases into the spotlight. It showed how new technology and fresh perspectives could crack cases that have been gathering dust for years. Plus, it reminded everyone about the victims and their families, still hurting, still searching for answers, even decades later.
So it was like a public service announcement disguised as a kick-ass crime drama.
You could say that. It reminded us that every victim deserves justice no matter how much time has passed. It gave a voice to the forgotten and pissed off a few corrupt cops along the way, I'm sure.
Speaking of pissed off,
Yeah.
The show got the axe after 7 seasons. Was it a ratings thing, or was there some juicy behind-the-scenes drama that led to its demise?
Ratings were definitely a factor, as always. Competition from other shows, scheduling changes, it all adds up. But there wasn't a scandalous meltdown or anything. It just ran its course.
That's a shame. But wait, there's more. Apparently some crazy bastards in other countries decided to make their own versions of Cold Case. What the fuck?
Yeah, Japan and Russia jumped on the bandwagon with their own adaptations. Goes to show you that the themes of justice, memory, and the heavy weight of the past resonate everywhere. People are fascinated by these cold cases, no matter where they live.
All right, let's circle back to the whole historical context thing. You mentioned they tackled some pretty heavy shit. Can you give us some specific examples of how they weaved those issues into the cases? Don't hold back. Give us the gruesome details.
Take the episode Best Friends, for example. It dealt with a murder from the 1960s. Smack dab in the middle of the civil rights movement. The victim was a young black woman, and the investigation ripped the stab off the era's racism and prejudice.
So they weren't afraid to get their hands dirty and show how these social issues were entangled with the crimes.
Exactly. It wasn't just about who done it. It was about why the social forces that created the conditions for these fucked up situations. It gave the show a depth that most police procedurals wouldn't dare to touch.
Now, were these cases ripped from the headlines, or were they just conjured up by some screenwriter with a twisted imagination?
While they were fictional, they were often inspired by real events, real crimes that had actually happened. The writers would Frankenstein different cases, taking bits and pieces and stitching them together to create a new story. But it was always grounded in reality.
So it wasn't like they were pulling these cases out of their asses. There was actual research and a connection to real-world bullshit.
Absolutely. They wanted the cases to feel authentic, to have that raw, uncomfortable truth to them. They even talked to former detectives and forensic experts to make sure the details were accurate.
Okay, we've talked about the music, the historical shit, and the cases themselves. But what about the characters? Did people connect with those detectives on a personal level? Did they have more depth than a puddle?
They did a decent job developing the characters, giving them backstories and personal struggles that made them relatable. Lily Rush, the lead detective, was particularly compelling. She was dedicated, driven, and clearly haunted by the cases she investigated.
Yeah, she was always so fucking intense. You could practically see the cases gnawing at her soul. It was more than a job for her. It was personal.
Exactly. And that's what made her so captivating. She brought this raw empathy to the cases that really resonated with viewers.
All right, let's take a quick piss break and be right back to delve deeper into the world of cold case. Don't touch that dial. You might get electrocuted.
You know, it's funny how a fictional show like Cold Case could stir up so much real-world shit.
Yeah, you mentioned it brought cold cases into the spotlight. Did it actually lead to any real-life cases getting cracked? Did any cops actually get off their asses and solve something because of this show?
It's tough to draw a direct line from the show to any specific breakthroughs, but there's no doubt that Cold Case raised awareness. It showed the potential of new technologies, fresh eyes, and just plain stubborn determination to solve these seemingly impossible cases.
So even if it didn't directly solve cases, it got people thinking, got those wheels turning, maybe planted a seed of doubt in some corrupt asshole's mind.
Exactly. It humanized the victims, reminded everyone that behind every cold case, there's a family still grappling with the pain, still yearning for answers.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about those international remakes. You mentioned Japan and Russia hopped on the cold case train. Were they just cheap knockoffs, or did they actually put their own spin on things?
They adapted the format to fit their own cultures, which is pretty damn interesting. The Japanese version, for example, was set in Yokohama and had a female lead detective just like the American show, but they also explored themes unique to Japanese society, like the aftermath of World War II.
So they weren't just swapping out the actors and translating the script.
Yeah.
They actually dug into their own history, their own social anxieties.
Yeah, and it resonated with audiences. The Japanese version ran for 3 seasons, proving that the core concept of cold case revisiting the past to find justice in the present is a universal goddamn obsession.
Now for the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Why the fuck did they cancel the show?
I see.
Was it just a ratings slump, or was there more to the story?
Ratings played a part, sure, but I think there's more to it. Cold Case demanded a lot from its viewers. It wasn't mindless entertainment. It required you to think, to feel, to confront some uncomfortable truths about the past.
So you're saying it was too intellectually demanding for the average dimwit glued to the boob tube?
Maybe. Or maybe it was just the right show at the right time. It had a good run, told some powerful stories, and left a lasting impact. Sometimes that's all you can ask for.
All right, time to get real.
Yeah.
You spent way too much time studying crime and the justice system. Did Cold Case get anything wrong? Were there any glaring inaccuracies that made you want to scream at the TV?
They definitely took some creative liberties, mostly for dramatic effect. For example, they often condense the timeline of investigations, making them seem much faster and more straightforward than they are in real life. Solving a cold case can take years, even decades of painstaking work, not a tidy 45-minute episode.
So it's more about giving the audience that quick dopamine hit of a solved case, rather than showing the tedious reality of police work.
Exactly. And don't get me started on the technology. They often show detectives using futuristic forensic tools that weren't even a twinkle in a scientist's eye when the crimes were committed.
Oh, no, it's hard.
What can you say?
Okay, but did they at least nail the human side of it? The emotional toll on the detectives, the victims' families?
They definitely capture the weight of these cases, how they can consume those who work on them. The search for justice can become an obsession, and they didn't shy away from showing that. They also portrayed the lingering pain and unanswered questions that haunt the families of victims.
Speaking of the people behind the scenes, did any of the actors go on to do anything worthwhile after Cold Case, or did they just fade into oblivion?
Danny Pino, who played Detective Scotty Valens, landed a major role on Law & Order, SVU, for a good chunk of time. And Catherine Morris, who played Lily Rush, has continued working steadily in film and television.
So they didn't just vanish into thin air after the show ended. Good for them. Not everyone escapes the black hole of canceled TV shows.
Right. And it's a testament to their talent. They brought those characters to life, made them believable, even in a show that sometimes stretched the limits of plausibility.
All right, before we wrap up this deep dive into Cold Case, let's play a little game. If you could pick any real-life cold case to be featured on the show, which one would it be and why?
That's a tough one. There are so many compelling cases out there. But if I had to choose, I think the disappearance of Amelia Earhart would be perfect for cold case. The mystery, the historical context, the enduring questions, it's all there.
Damn, that's a good one. Imagine those flashback sequences, the music they could use, the drama.
Plus, they could really delve into the sexism Earhart faced as a female pilot in the 1930s. It would add another layer of complexity to the case.
All right, you goddamn sleuths, we're back for the final round of our deep dive into cold case. We've dissected this show from every fucking angle. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the goddamn brilliant. So what's the final verdict? Was Cold Case just another cop show, or was it something more?
It was definitely more than just another procedural. It made you think about the past, about how the consequences of crime can ripple through generations, about the enduring power of justice. It reminded you that every victim has a story, and sometimes those stories get buried under years of dust and indifference. Cold Case dusted them off and gave them a voice.
It's like they were given the middle finger to time, showing that even decades-old crimes still matter. Those victims, those families, they never got closure.
Exactly. It wasn't just about catching the bad guy. It was about understanding the context of the crime, the social and historical forces at play. That's what gave the show its depth, its emotional punch. And let's be real, the music was fucking brilliant. It elevated the whole thing to another level.
Okay, let's cut the crap. If Cold Case was so damn good, why the hell did it get canned? Why did they pull the plug after 7 seasons?
Ratings were a factor, but I think there's a deeper reason. Cold Case wasn't for the faint of heart or the short of attention span. It demanded something from its viewers, a willingness to engage with complex themes, to confront uncomfortable truths, to feel something. In a world of instant gratification and bite-sized entertainment, maybe that was just too much to ask.
So it was too real, too raw for the average couch potato who just wants to zone out and forget about the world's bullshit for an hour.
Maybe. Or maybe it was just the right show at the right time. It told its stories, left its mark, and then faded to black. Not a bad legacy, if you ask me.
All right, one last question before we wrap this up. If you could resurrect Cold Case for just one more episode, which real-life cold case would you choose to bring to the screen?
That's a tough one. But I think the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa would be a wild ride. Imagine the historical backdrop, the union drama, the mafia connections. Plus, they could go all out with the music, blasting some classic Motown to really set the mood.
Damn, that would be epic. The flashbacks, the conspiracies, the shady character. They could even throw in some political intrigue for good measure. All right, folks, that's a wrap on our deep dive into Cold Case. We hope you enjoyed the ride, learned a thing or two, and maybe even got inspired to dig into some real-life mysteries on your own. And remember, if you ever stumbled across a cold case that's been bugging you for years, don't be afraid to ask questions, raise hell, and demand answers. Because sometimes justice takes a little time, a little luck, and a whole lot of stubborn determination. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and don't let the bastards grind you down.